if I was running Facebook for a day, the big opportunity, in my opinion, was really not the metaverse, but it was actually getting the closest that anybody could get to AGI. And if I had to steel man that product case, here's how I would have pitched it to the board and to Zuck. I would have said, listen, there are 3.5 billion people monthly using this thing. If we think about human intelligence very reductively, we would say that there's a large portion of it which is cognitive, and then there's a large portion of it which is emotional. We have the best ability to build a multimodal model that basically takes all of these massive inputs together to try to intuit how a system would react to all kinds of stimuli. That, to me, would have been a profound leap forward for humanity.
Can you dig into that a little bit more? So in terms of, now this is a board meeting, how would that make Facebook money?
I think that you have all of these systems over time that we don't know could benefit from some layer of reasoning to make it better. What does Spotify look like when instead of just a very simple recommendation engine, it actually understands sort of your emotional context and your mood and can move you to a body of music that you would like? What does it look like if, your television, instead of having to go and channel surf, 50,000 shows on a horrible UI, instead just has a sense of what you're into and shows it to you? What does it mean when you get in your car and it actually drives you to a place because you should actually eat there, even though you don't know it? These are all random things that make no sense a priori, but it starts to make the person or the provider of that service the critical reasoning layer for all these everyday products that today would look very flat without that reasoning. And I think you license that and you make a lot of money. So in many ways, instead of becoming more of the pixels that you see, you become more of the bare metal that actually creates that experience. And if you look at the companies that are multi-decade legacy kinds of businesses, the thing that they have done is quietly and surreptitiously move down the stack. You never move up the stack to survive. You need to move down the stack. So if you take that OSI reference stack, right, these layers, how you build an app from the physical layer to the transport layer, all the way up to the app layer, you can map from the 1980s all the big companies that have been created, right? All the way from Fairchild Semiconductor and Nat Semi to Intel to Cisco to 3Com, Oracle, Netscape at one point, all the way up to the Googles and Facebooks of the world. But if you look at where all the lock-in happened, it's by companies like Apple, who used to make software, saying, I'm going to get one close. I'm going to make the bare metal and I'm going to become the platform. Or Google, same thing. I'm going to create this dominant platform and I'm going to create a substrate that organizes all this information. That's just omnipresent and everywhere. So the key is, if you are lucky enough to be one of these apps that are in front of people, you better start digging quickly and moving your way down and get out of the way and disappear. But by disappearing, you will become much, much bigger and it's impossible to usurp you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. That's why you're so smart. This is the deep personalization and the algorithms that enable depersonalization, almost like a operating system layer. So pushing away from the interface and the actual system that does the personalization. Yeah. I think the challenges there's obviously technical challenges, but there's also societal challenges that it's like in a relationship. If you have an intimate algorithmic connection with individual humans, you can do both good and bad. And so there's risks that you're taking.
Yeah.
So if you're making a lot of money now as Twitter and Facebook with ads, surface layer ads, what is the incentive to take the risk of guiding people more? Because you can hurt people, you can piss off people, you can, there's a cost to forming a more intimate relationship with the users in the short term, I think.
You said a really, really key thing, which was a really great emotional, instinctive reaction, which is when I said the AGI thing, you said, well, how would you ever make money from that? That is the key. The presumption is that this thing would not be an important thing at the beginning. And I think what that allows you to do, if you were Twitter or Google or Apple or Facebook, anybody, Microsoft, embarking on building something like this, is that you can actually have it off the critical path. And you can experiment with this for years if that's what it takes to find a version 1 that is special enough where it's worth showcasing. And so in many ways, you get the free option. You're going to be spending, any of these companies will be spending tens of billions of dollars in OpEx and CapEx every year on all kinds of stuff. It is not a thing that money actually makes more likely to succeed. In fact, you actually don't need to give these kinds of things a lot of money at all, because starting in 2023, or right now, you have the 2 most important tectonic shifts that have ever happened in our lifetime in technology. They're not talked about, but these things allow AGI, I think, to emerge over the next 10 or 15 years where it wasn't possible for. The first thing is that the marginal cost of energy is 0. You're not going to pay for anything anymore, right? And we can double click into why that is. And the second is the marginal cost of compute is 0. And so when you take the multiplication, or, if you want to get really fancy mathematically, the convolution of these 2 things together, it's going to change everything. So think about what $1 billion gets today. And we can use OpenAI as an example. $1 billion gets OpenAI a handful of functional models and a pretty fast iterative loop, right? But imagine what OpenAI had to overcome. They had to overcome a compute challenge. They had to strip together a whole bunch of GPUs. They had to build all kinds of scaffolding software. They had to find data center support. That consumes all kinds of money. So that $1 billion didn't go that far. So it's a testament to how clever that OpenAI team is. But in 4 years from now, when energy costs 0 and basically GPUs are like, they're falling off a truck and you can use them effectively for free, now all of a sudden $1 billion gives you some amount of teraflops of compute that is probably the total number of teraflops available today in the world. Like, that's how gargantuan this move is when you take these 2 variables to 0.